terms of the marketplace, I would say it's been a relatively, at best, static 2023.
Yeah.
Being a data-driven approach, one of the things that we found is that the average usage for clients across their inventory in 2023 was about 76%. So of everything
Usage
of the inventory that they'd bought from job boards. So
Okay.
people haven't been as busy as they were in 2022, which I think most people would say feels
that's fair.
about
Yeah, I think
about
that's
right. I don't necessarily think that people have done anything wrong in 2023. You know, we're always, as salespeople, we're always after every year to be better. And I don't think 2023 was a bad year. It just wasn't as good as 2022. And, you know, we have one of them, things happen in peaks and troughs. And I think one of the things that we're seeing now is that people are looking to do more with less. So it's like, how can we cut costs?
Yeah.
How can we make more money with what we're already buying? How can we run things more efficiently? And I think, as we were mentioning before, you know, a year ago, a lot of recruitment companies had a very different culture from when I was in it, like 20 years ago, when we used to get the phone taped to our head.
Yeah.
It's moved on from that, and people were working from home, and it was a very kind of grown up and mature culture. And I think maybe over the last 12 months, some companies have gone back to maybe a kind of a step in between that. So it's been a little bit more KPI driven. Let's get everyone back in the office and make sure that they're doing everything that we
It's almost
want
like they've
them to
gone
do.
back to like the default mode, isn't it? It's sort
Yeah.
of like, oh, this new way is kind of working, and then
works,
it's sort of
kind of.
like, oh, hang on, things are taking a bit of a dip. Let's
Yeah.
go back to what we know, right?
And I think I see things on LinkedIn, I'm sure you do, that, you know, working from home doesn't work and everyone's got to be back in the office. I don't necessarily agree with that. There's a wonderful stat that LinkedIn have got that 80% of their applications go to 20% of the roles that are hybrid or work from home. And that shows, they would have to show you that people want to have an element in their life. So I think recruitment companies are going to have an element of trusting people, and it's a sales job at the end of the day. So I'm going to hope that the big thing that matters is what you build and how you perform, and the kind of
The thing is, most recruitment business owners will say, I don't care how you do it, as long as you're putting money on the board.
Yeah.
I don't care. Do what you want, right? But then when push comes to shove, I don't think they always react in that manner either.
No,
you know?
no, I would agree with that. And one of the things that we're seeing is, like, you know, it hasn't been as good as it was last year. Why is that? You know, are we doing things wrong? Or do we need to do things better? And I don't necessarily think that companies are doing things wrong. I think that there's improvements that can be made. I think that job board costs have gone up substantially, because obviously that's the angle that we look at from where things are coming out from recruitment. And I think there's companies that have embraced that understanding that costs have gone higher and that you can't just put an advert everywhere and see what comes in anymore.
No.
You've got to try and utilise it. And I also think that companies that want to make those marginal gains and save some money here, save some money there, and like, go back to what I said before, and make sure that they're using everything in the best way they can. They're the ones that, combining that with kind of making sure that the consultants have got every tool that they can to deliver success. They're the ones that are
so important, right?
Oh,
because
hugely.
yeah, I'm seeing the ones that I'm speaking to that are like, no, we've had a good year. Like, things have gone really well. They've got a really good blended approach.
Yeah.
They've got the right sort of automation outreach stuff. They're using they're using LinkedIn in the right manner. They're doing their content marketing piece. They're doing their personal branding piece. But they're not neglecting the mail shot strategy and the telephone strategy.
Huge.
You know, accepting that actually maybe people aren't going to answer the phone as quickly as they would do the first time. You know, like a few years back, and it's going to take maybe a couple of touch points and arrange a phone call rather than call them out of the blue and ask them what they're doing for a living. But the ones that have got it right have got that toolbox in the right place. They've got the right tech stack. They've got exactly the kind of things that their people need. Because I see a lot of the issues that kind of, and we were guilty for it on our recruitment side, was, you know, we'd see a product out there in the RecTech space and be like, that's fantastic, let's take it. And you'd buy it and you'd introduce it to the team, and then you'd have some use it, some not use it, some use it effectively, and some just not really kind of get it.
Yeah.
And you're kind of like, oh crap, and that's a wasted amount of money.
100%.
You know?
Yeah. We do one of the things we do with our clients is like a health check of when we start working with them. We'll look at all their usage, all their costs, all their placements, and kind of break down where it's been working, where the placements have been coming from and where they're not. And I can hand on heart say that every business owner we've ever spoke to has told me they've got a fantastic CRM system. And then you look at the placements, and one of the things we look for is over 40% of your placements coming from your CRM.
Yeah.
And when it's under that, we'll be giving the feedback, and the director will be like, no, the CRM system's brilliant. And we speak to the consultants, and they'll be like, that, never use it because it's unsearchable, or it's got too many candidates on it. And that's one of the things that I think is, it's all well and good having these tools, but it's about making sure that they're actually the tools that you need, and they're actually being utilised in the right way.
Right? If you've never used a CRM properly, you don't know what you're missing.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And so I think that causes somewhat of a disconnect for business owners, because, again, you think about the general journey of a recruitment business owner is they were at a agency, they did well, they build again, they built a massive brand for themselves, confident enough to go, I'm going to go do this for myself.
Yeah.
But then with that, they take a lot of the bad habits and a lot of the sort of the stuff that they shouldn't have been doing. Add into that, then the world's changed. There's this great awakening of kind of how consumers buy and how consumers interact with businesses now. And so you're not amending to that because you're a good recruiter. You're not a marketing specialist. You're certainly not a finance specialist. And you mentioned data a number of times there. I don't know a single recruiter that I can say off the top of my head knows their data off their head. You know what I mean? Like
I think some are starting to, if I'll be honest.
Yeah,
it's one of the things
because of businesses like yours that are going out and going, guys, have you looked at where your placements are coming from? No. Why not? But how do you know where the holes in your buckets are if you're not looking for them?
Yeah, no, exactly. And one of the things that our health checks do is it's probably more important to know where your placements aren't coming from than where they are coming from.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that companies are starting to look at. And, with job board costs rising and probably going to continue to rise over the next few years. I mean, when I worked in recruitment back in the early 2000s, you could stick an advert on Monster, fish for jobs, maybe cost you £6. You look at it now, if you've got LinkedIn adverts and you've got total jobs, that you may well be touching 3 figures by the time you've posted it to that and CV Library and Read. And one of the things that we're keen to look at is if you look at that as a data exercise, because as good as the job boards are at getting candidates to them, which they are very good at, the amount of new candidates, you know this, are probably very rare. It's normally people who have been off that are coming back on. So in terms of a data acquisition, it's really important that when you get that application in, you might not place them today, but it's really important that the guys are keeping in touch with them, doing the regular mail shots, recommend a friend, all these things that don't necessarily cost money, but can make a really big difference to increasing the ROI and the overall placements that a business are making.
An extra couple of placements per consultant a month. From just doing additional activity. But okay, so you were over at TJ job site when that kind of 400% pricing
that was fun.
Happened.
Yeah.
Tell us about that, because I think I know how recruiters feel about it, but I don't think many know kind of what happened and what the justification was.
So I think one of the things that maybe gets lost in the marketplace is I think probably advertising on job boards was too cheap. So when they sat us down and explained what they were doing, we were told that they basically lose money on most recruitment adverts, but they make it back on their direct clients. Because they were running an advert for an average of most of my clients who are major clients were probably somewhere in between £6 to £12 an advert, depending on the volume they were buying. And on the money they were spending on Google and driving traffic in, a lot of the time they were coming out at relatively negative or even quite, for certain roles, losing quite a lot of money. So they were always going to have to put their costs up. The level they did it at, I think... That. Do you know?
No.
I think if you look at...
The only reason being, I know... we've got over 1,000 vendors on RecTalk. Yeah. And I know how much we pay AWS to host the site, right? And this is packed full of imagery and video and I also know what I pay on, or used to pay on, the Google Ads console to drive additional traffic and additional users, right? Being a former candidate I would always go totaljobs.com and look at jobs on Total Jobs.
70% of candidates don't do that. They just go to Google and put Java developer in Coventry or account director in
That's
Manchester.
What they're doing now, absolutely, because there's so many job boards out there. But equally, Yeah, I don't know, because then you've got the Google for Jobs optimization, which again doesn't cost you much. It's just it's additional bit of
I
kind of
think
coding in the background.
Indeed
I
coming
feel
into
like
the
that's a
market.
bit of a kind of get out of jail free
Yeah,
card.
and
It
I'm
costs
not.
us too much money, so we
Yeah,
need to raise our prices.
I think
You know?
I've got to take it with a pinch of salt. It's what we were told, and I think Indeed coming into the market meant that Total Jobs were having to buy a lot more traffic in from the likes of Google and Adzuna and all the other
TJ
places
had
that
just
get
bought
them.
JobSite though.
Yes, they had.
So one would argue that the reason they did it was to try and recoup some of the losses or some of the costs involved in acquiring a job board, which they probably thought was bigger.
How dare you? I'm job site.
No. What, yeah.
I know what you mean.
What
though,
I mean
yeah.
is there was perhaps there was a crossover between users, right?
Yeah.
When it was sort of the average cost of a job site license for the year was $2,000 and TJ was $2,000. You know, businesses our size would have both.
Yeah.
You know, and so post acquisition, is there an element perhaps that they looked at it and thought, holy shit, we've just bought our customers?
Yeah, I think, and again, this is only my theory, and it was never said by them. I've got to say this, but I think a lot of it comes from the fact that Stepstone own Total Jobs, and if you ever look at the Stepstone prices in Germany, it's between £700 to £1,300 an advert, and I've been in calls with them where they openly talk about just how cheap it was to advertise or is to advertise in the UK compared to them. And I think there was an element of them going, why is it £8 there and it's 800 here? It needs to change. And I think, could they have got away with charging £14 and most people would have accepted it? Probably. I think probably they would. Could they have done it over 3 or 4 years and it would have been okay? Yeah, I think
it'd be interesting to see the stats once kind of the accounts are put through and everything else.
Yeah.
How many customers did churn away? Because a lot said that they would, but then I know, we had to swallow it from CV Library.
Yeah.
We had to swallow it from Reed because they were the two that we relied on.
Yeah.
And what it meant was we ended up not signing up with TJ as an example because we just didn't have the budget anymore.
I think the bigger thing that's probably hit them harder is they did it in 2022. I think thinking recruitment's really buoyant here.
Yeah,
Now's the
bounce
time
back.
to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think some people did just swallow it through gritted teeth. No one ever signed it with a smile on their face. Let's put it that way. But I think people did sign it, when people didn't sign it, they didn't really miss it in 2022 because it was one of them years where it's like, oh my God, we just had a record April. Yeah. Oh my God, we just had a record May.
Yeah.
So last year when things were tighter, one of the things you don't do is go, you know what we need to buy this year? That really expensive job board that we dropped and did really well when we dropped it. Yeah. And I think that's probably been the tougher thing that they've suffered from. I think initially a lot of their bigger clients did kind of swallow it. And I remember having to deliver some quite painful messages and kind of sit with our clients and go through kind of what worked and what didn't work and go into almost consultative mode. But I think maybe one of the things that hasn't happened that I think maybe they think did, and I've been gone over a year, so I don't know if it was their plan, was I don't think people have gone, well, I've missed this, I really need to come back. I don't think people felt the pain of not having it because recruitment was so good during that time.
Talking from experience, we like our business, and I know a handful of others looked at it and went, well, if I'm spending that kind of money, I'm probably going to look at a LinkedIn recruiter license now.
Yeah.
Do you know, especially within sort of professional services and that kind of thing. Because I think with job boards, especially in today's market, the ones that are generic and are very like wide reaching, whilst that's great from a perspective of like you're an established brand like your Monsters, your TJs, you know, unless you've got a niche, like people are now starting to go to those niche job boards. Factor that in, then also you've got Slack groups that are niche Slack groups with a jobs like kind of division within that.
Yeah.
There are so many more places to go to now. And then you've got Google going, oh, we've done Google for jobs, and we'll do what Indeed we're doing and just scrape the market based on your keyword search and put you back with everybody that's on there. And then you've got smaller job boards going, oh, we just need to Google optimize. Yeah. As long as we optimize our jobs for Google for jobs, well, we're going to get traffic.
We just need to work our data better. We need to work our existing sources better. And I think in a weird way, what Total Jobs did was probably good for recruitment because everyone was like, right, what else can we use now? Right, and we're going to make that step and go big on LinkedIn, but we're going to do it by getting the guys to build personal brands. We're going to get it by making sure that they're engaging with it.
And I think those little marginal pieces.
Things like Pager and things like that have come into the market. I think in a weird way, Total Jobs was really good for them because if you're doing IT jobs, and you could put an IT job on Total Jobs for £6. I know a lot of my clients were kind of like, you know what, it's £6, it probably won't work,
Yeah.
but statistically speaking, over the year we'll make a good ROI on it, so let's keep doing it. At £30, that's a much bigger decision.
You've got to really think where
You've got to know where it's coming from, and that they took that money away from there and they invested it in other things that have worked really well for them. And one of the things I will say is, having been the other side of the fence now for a while, I've yet to speak to anyone who made a data-driven decision to drop Total Jobs. Most people made it based on the fact of going, I am not paying that an advert. This doesn't feel right. I'm going to walk away. And that's a really hard thing. And I was the other side of the fence back then. That is a really hard decision to get people around. Once people are like, it just doesn't sit right, it's a really, no matter how long you've known them. I was speaking to people I've known 15 years, from like when I was first in recruitment or when I was at Giant, and they were like, we've got a really good relationship, but I'm not buying that. And it's it was a really, really, I made a decision early doors that I was going to go out and see my clients face to face to deliver it. It felt like the right thing to do. And I had some really awkward silences in setting boardrooms. I remember trying to, as salespeople, sometimes we're told to embrace the silence. And I remember being sat in a boardroom, a really big boardroom, and after about 2 minutes of total silence, I went to speak, and I won't name him, but the guy went, "Not yet." And we just sat and stared at the prices on this massive whiteboard for about another 2 or 3 minutes. And it was really awkward. But in a weird way, this is what led us to what we're doing now. So, so in a weird way, it's kind of, it hasn't worked out that well for the market, or maybe it has. I don't know. I think maybe the jury's out on that.
Well, I think there's a combination of factors there, isn't there? But look, the way we buy is changing.
Yes.
And has been for the last 5 years, as a minimum. And I think what I find frustrating from the kind of our industry perspective is that we're always so slow to change, right? We're all full of kind of, Gen X and Gen Z and millennial kind of age groups that work in this industry. We all know what's on trend, what isn't on trend. We all know if I take a picture of myself on holiday or with my dog, LinkedIn's going to eat that shit up and it's going to spread that everywhere. But then I've got a chance to then capitalize and kind of use my personal branding to then go, oh, by the way, I also do recruitment. Here's the stuff I recruit for. Like, we all know all the tricks of the trade, right? We also all know how we choose to buy things. If my phone could ring, I'm not going to answer it if I don't recognize the number. What I might do is Google the number and be like, oh, it's this person. And then I might then go onto LinkedIn and connect with them if I'm interested in what this business want to do, right? I'm certainly not going to answer off the first phone call. If somebody emails me with a mail shot, I'm going to ignore it. But if somebody emails me and captures my attention within sort of the first 3 seconds, I'm probably going to be like, yeah, okay, cool, let's jump on a call.
So that's interesting, isn't it? So I will take sales calls because I've been the other side of the fence, and my entry level into recruitment was hammering the phones for a company that was outsourced for O2. So I always do that. Maybe it's because I felt my own pain when I was there.
Yeah, because you empathise with
but I won't
the
do the classic, like, who's this connecting with me on LinkedIn? Don't know them, but I'm always willing to connect with people. And then bang, hi Simon, would you like to? And you're like, oh no, that's the bit that drives me crazy. It's like those own little,
this is
those
it, but
personal.
we've all got little personal nuances, right? But then when it comes to selling in the industry, we do it in exactly the way that we're told, and we know doesn't work because it doesn't work for us. Like, I was having this conversation the other day, right, with a guy that I'm looking at bringing on as our kind of marketing manager, and we were talking about all sorts of different stuff. And I went, I don't think job adverts have got a space in the market for much longer. And I get job specs, absolutely, right, but job adverts, I would argue, and you're the perfect person to answer this too, the majority of applications or applicants look at job title, location, and / kind of work setup, salary, and then choose to apply or not. Because I've seen a lot of, like, but what we also know is that people spend a lot of time watching, short form video format, right?
Yeah.
So where are the recruiters on my LinkedIn feed putting together a short form video of, I've got this exciting opportunity. You can use all the cliche buzzwords that you want. Fantastic client, amazing opportunity, all that sort of shit. But tell me about the job in a short format video.
I couldn't agree more.
Test that for a period of time. And watch the number
when
of
video technology came really big during lockdown, I always remember thinking, and my business partner and I were sat talking about this, I thought the future of it was I'm not going to write an advert on LinkedIn. I'm going to do a
slap a
quick
video up.
20-second talk, which is exactly what recruiters are really good at doing. This is the job, this is the pay, this is the location.
Fab me.
This is why I think it's a really good job. Let's have a chat. And that just never seems to have taken off. It took off a little bit during lockdown, but then it's kind of gone away again. And one of the questions we get asked a lot is like the how AI is going to affect things in recruitment, because it's the new thing that's going to kill recruitment. I remember job boards were going to go recruitment, Facebook was going to kill job boards, LinkedIn was going to kill job boards. You know, there's been various different things, and I think AI stops really bad adverts, but doesn't create really good adverts.
No.
And I think one of the things that now separates when I'm not a copywriter for recruiters, but one of the things we do when we work with clients is how can they increase their ROI on their additional contracts is use their adverts better. And I would say when I look at a job advert, 90% of adverts are what the recruiter's looking for and not a reason why a candidate should apply. So it's like you say, it's got the right job title, it's got the location. Salaries, there aren't much difference in most jobs these days, let's be honest. You go through kind of the qualifications that you're looking for, you're like, yeah, I've got them. There's not a single reason to apply for the job. And I think that's the big thing. If people can make those little changes.
Well, the thing is, I'm a massive advocate for AI. I don't believe it's going to take a load of people's jobs away from them yet. No. However, and I certainly don't think it's going to kill the industry. Well, the argument around the whole job advert AI thing, for me, I think is null and void when the market is already full of really boring and generic job adverts. So if an AI tool can write a slightly less boring, still little bit generic job advert, that's still better, right? That's a marginal step.
Yes,
It's a step forward. And like, you can't expect the AI tools and the automation tools to produce a Mitch Sullivan advert.
No.
Right?
No.
And it never will, because what he's teaching you is very, very different to what an AI is capable of doing.
And recruiters don't need to be copywriters,
no,
though,
this
do
is
they?
it, right?
But they can take little
They
bits
can take
of it.
little bits, right? And if you can use the AI to put together a framework or a blueprint for your advert, where you can then change a little bit, oh, I like that, I don't like that, we'll change this bit, that's great.
Yeah.
If you're just going to go into a Word document that was given to you on day one, and if you pick up a credit control vacancy, here's a credit control advert. If you pick up a purchase ledger vacancy, here's a purchase ledger advert. And this is me talking from experience, by the way. You know, you get given, here's all your job adverts in a Word document, just copy and paste those. That's been approved by marketing, and that's what we put out. And then you sit and scratch your head and be like, oh, it's weird, we're not getting the right level of applications.
Yeah. I've had this. I've had marketers of people I know, like, we've just done this advert, what's your thoughts? We're going to use this for all of our business development adverts. I'm like that. Please don't. Yeah. Every job has its nuance.
This is not a national campaign.
Yeah, so like when I was at Total Jobs, a really good job, you know, working for a corporate company, big structure, loads of training, but towards the end of my time, I really wasn't enjoying it because I like to have my voice heard. I like my opinion to matter. I like to be able to, one of the reasons I loved JobSite was it was the biggest small company you'll ever work for. I used to speak to the sales director at least once a week, and he'd want to know the conversations that he had, and he'd listen to like the feedback I was getting from clients, and that would form the strategy. So like on paper, Total Jobs is a brilliant job for someone, but it wasn't for me. And we've just done some work for one of our clients, and they had a double glazing sales manager job in Blackburn, right? Not the sexiest job you're ever going to see, but the job was basically they'd grown organically to this point, and now they were wanting to put functions in place which was going to help them become a bit more structured. And whoever got the sales manager's job was basically going to be able to design their own sales function and be able to put people in place, give the training. For someone like me who was coming out of a corporate company, that would have been wonderful. But most adverts, I read the advert they did, and it was just a job spec, and it was really boring. And I was like, there's no mention about being able to put your own blueprint on that. And that's the thing, every job has its nuance.
What we do is we go and have a client meeting, and we'll go, oh, that's amazing, right, family owned, okay, and you've grown to this point, you're doing this and you're doing that. And then I'll ring you and be like, son, I've got a fantastic opportunity. Right, owner managed business, they're doing this, they want to do this, they've got vision, they've got this, they've got that, they've got all of this good shit. I'll tell you all of that on the phone, and then I'll send you the job spec, and the job spec.
Yeah, and that's why I always say, like, in your advert, what's in there of the conversation you would have? What's that? You know, that first 20 seconds when you're trying to hook people in, is any of that in your advert? No. Well, you know it. Yeah, and this is why recruiters recruit better than direct clients. So I can normally look at a direct client, an advert, and know if it's a direct client straight away, as you could, because it's just like, it's normally just a job spec with a little bit about the company. And recruiters are incredibly good salespeople. And one of the things we always try and say to them is just put a bit of those sales skills in your adverts, and it just separates yourself from everybody
It's
got
more
really
than achievable,
quickly.
isn't it? But it can,
think
equally,
so,
you can
because they know
train
it.
an AI
That's the bit.
module to do that for you as well, right?
Yes.
So, I mean, one of the things. So we've got the AI playground on Rec Tools, and you've got a job ad generator in there. And one of the things that we're doing as part of our kind of rebuild and version 2 of that is, okay, no, when a user types in, I need a sales manager job spec for a double glazing business, don't just produce a job spec, ask it some qualifying questions first.
Yeah.
Tell me a bit about the company. Tell me 2 great things about the company and 1 not so good thing about the company. And, some competitor information, some whatever. Give me some information, and then I will put you back an advert that's a bit more targeted and a bit more nuanced, rather than just a sales manager vacancy. Here's what sales managers like.
Well, I think as well, it's about just taking that little bit of time, and it goes back to, I guess it doesn't matter whether the advert was going to cost £10 or 100, but at 100 it's probably a bit more important. One of the things I see at the moment is questions are the new trendy things in adverts, and I really like a good question in advert. It's one of the things that I really like, and when I watched your podcast with Google loves them. When I watched one of your podcasts with Miss Sullivan, he was talking about just how important they are, and I couldn't agree more. I mean, he's forgotten more than I'll ever know about how to write an advert, but I see it a lot now, and it's kind of like, are you a quantity surveyor looking for a new role? Well, of course you are, because you're reading a quantity surveyor advert on Total Jobs.
I'm a bar manager.
But, and this is where I think about, it's just about getting, like you say, a good question in there. And that's what recruiters ask good questions, because you hear them on the phone, but it's just about getting them to put that in the copy.
Put that kind of your phone skills to use on paper to try and almost qualify in or qualify out relevant people. Data is so key, though, and we're not very good at looking at data, because we find data boring. We're salespeople, we find data boring. So how what are the tricks to kind of get more excited by the data? Why do I want to look at my conversion?
Outsource it to me. I think so. I'm a bit the same. So one of the reasons that we work at our company is I like the narrative. I like the story. Like a lot of salespeople, I like the story that comes off data more than I like data. But I can't tell that story with any conviction if I don't do the data element of it first. And Craig, my business partner, he loves data. He can sit and look at data for days on end, and just he comes back and he gives me very black and white stats, and then I go, ooh, so this means this. So Craig was the one that came up with our average usage has been 76% across all of our retained clients' contracts this year. So I was like, so people have underused and people haven't been as busy as they were last year, and that means that when people potentially look at their renewals, they need to think about not like for like, which I was on the job board, that's always your standard thing. That's almost out the window unless you're predicting a minimum of 30% growth this year, which is unlikely. Your like-for-like renewal is irrelevant. You need to go back down to that next level. And that's, I think, where data gives you the key. And data also gives you a really good bargaining chip. We quite regularly will sit with the job boards and be like, we've been through the data and it's worked here, it hasn't worked here. And the job boards are really good at that. CV Library have been fantastic with us. Of where we tell them it's working, that's great. Where we tell them it isn't working, they'll sit with us and look at results. And if you do that throughout the contract rather than leaving it to renewal point, because most people look at it
if you're leaving
the
it
week
at renewal
before.
Point, then the only reason you're doing that is to try and bargain and
well, you should be
negotiate,
doing it at renewal point, because you need to know whether the contract has made enough money, and you need to know where it's made you money, and that should be determining where you should be looking to buy moving forward. But if you do it during it, like we're doing for one of our clients at the moment, we've been able to plug the holes where it's not working and look at either moving credits to where it is working really well and maximising that, or we've been doing stuff with CV Library again, where they've done HTML emailers, swapped unused credits out for HTML emailers so we can get those passive candidates as well. And that's kind of increased the placements in the areas where it was struggling, and kind of meant that it's got an increased return on investment, and it's meant that the usage has been closer to where it needs to be.
That's fascinating then, because again, from a traditional recruitment business owner sense, this is all my responsibility. I've got to be the one that I ain't got the time to call Total Jobs. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. So where you guys kind of plug that gap. So what I want to kind of understand is a bit more about sort of the service that you guys are offering, the media buying piece. You said something really key there about sort of swapping out credits, right? So we're not using that. We're going to change that to this.
Yeah.
And, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. Like, right, let's take these credits away because they're not really working for us, and let's see what we can get for that.
Yeah.
Talk me through kind of the service
that
you guys are offering.
I guess our service is kind of like, it's a bit more of an extended life cycle. So what if we were going to have a chat with a new recruiter today? The first thing we'd want to do is understand where they're looking to go in the future. But then the second thing we want to do is we need to know what they've used previously and how it's performed. And that reactive data gives us an indication of where things have worked, where things haven't worked. And we get a really good idea of which job boards have worked, which consultants have used what. It's not uncommon, I would say, for like the top 5 consultants, or maybe the top 5% or 10% of people to have used over 50% of the inventory, whereas they think everyone's using everything. And sometimes the biggest biller has also been the person who's spent the most money, and not necessarily in a wise way. They've just put their advert everywhere. So one of the things we do is it's important that they know their data. Know their data, and knowing what they're looking to achieve allows us then to, as they come into their contract renewal, to be able to buy better, which I think is really important. We need to be looking at where it's worked. If it hasn't worked, if you've been putting, if you put 5,000 IT adverts on caterer.com, a stupid example, but I don't want to name and shame any job boards, then you've wasted that money. So it's where can we do we pull that money, and if so, do we keep it as a saving, or do we reinvest it where there has been a good investment on the IT boards? And what we look for then is to be able to buy it better. We work a lot with Dave at Wave, and we also have our ability to buy ourselves. So we have the ability to buy at really good rates. But the main thing we're looking to do here is to buy better and to buy right. And then once we've got that contract in place, it's about working with the clients to make sure that either on a monthly or a quarterly basis, we're reporting back to them where their money's come from, where it hasn't come from, and what we can do about fixing it. And I would say it's great, if we look after month 3 and you're doing really well on accounting and your ROI in accountancy is £25 for every pound you spend on total jobs, that's brilliant. We know that's working. Where it's not making money, that's where we need to look at why. And is it because it should never be on there in the first place? Or are we writing bad adverts? Are we getting bad job specs? And it's kind of all about knowing your data, and then what can we do to make that data work better for you? And one of the things we plot with our retained clients is where their placements are coming from. So what percentage is coming from the job board and at what return on investment. But then we also look at things like where's coming from your, what percentage is coming from your CRM system. So one of the things I'm really keen to push is, and I think we mentioned this before, the cost of acquiring candidate data is so much more expensive that it's really important that you're capturing that and using it better. So if you can be looking at running 40% of your placements from your CRM system, then you're capturing a lot of the data that you're paying for, and you're not having to rebuy it again and again and again. Then we look for things like, what percentage is coming from recommend a friend, what percentage is coming from all the different sources that candidates, that recruiters have got now.
So you can then come back with the right type of recommendations, right? Yeah,
we've got so many recruiters have got so many more tools now to look at where their placements are coming from. And I think it's really important that we know that. And also, one of the things that we look for within that is it being recorded properly? And one of the things we tend to see a lot is there's 2 things. We tend to see initially loads of placements are going to CV Library. CV Library does really work, but it tends to be the first on the drop down, so people just tend to go with that. Or we tend to see it's quite trendy for LinkedIn placements because it's almost like the modern day headhunt. But what we like to do is just sense check those just to make sure they are coming from there. And we just want to make sure that the data that's getting recorded is being recorded in the right way, because at that point we can trust it.
And it all starts with the importance of that data then, doesn't it? Understanding and accepting the importance of that data. So that, and then I suppose that's a top down thing as well. It's not just the directors of a business that need to buy into that. It's got to be the team, like the right down to consultants. They need to understand, look, just clicking CV Library because it's the first on the drop down isn't really the way to do it.
And look, when I worked in recruitment, and I keep saying this a long time ago, I remember we used to rotate our placements around. There was like a team of 6 of us. We'd rotate our placements around the job boards between us to make sure that we had as many tools as possible, just so we could keep all the licenses going. But it's really important now. I'm not justifying it, but that was okay when it was £2 an advert to go and fish for jobs. It's £40, £50, £60 an advert now to go on LinkedIn. So it's really important that we know where it's working, but then where it isn't working, we can look at it. You know, if you signed a 3-year contract with LinkedIn, but your return on investment after 3 months is under £3, under £5 per pound spent, that needs improving, you know, because you've got so many other costs to pay for as a recruitment business owner these days, that needs to be one of your top sources. So that's one of the things we look for is engagement, right? Are you writing the best content? You know, all these little factors that kind of live up to just basically making just minute, just little marginal gains, and it's these marginal gains and about putting things in the right places. I'm a big fan of aces in places, you know, giving every advert the best opportunity by making sure it's actually where it needs to be. And making sure that the content's as good as it can be, and making sure that the person who's really good at CV database searching and really likes searching on Reed has got the amount of unlocks a day, and they're not locked out by 11 o'clock, and the person who never uses it has got the same amount of access. And it's that kind of, that level of detail makes a big difference, because, you know, it can increase. We've got, I think, our average ROI for our retained clients, we see a 12% lowering in costs, but our average increase in ROI has been 335% this year across everybody and across all the boards. And we do really well on Indeed in terms of being able to increase people's kind of usage and knowledge on that. But it's really about helping them not spend more, but spend better, and then get a better return on investment on that spend, really. Because it is, like I say, it's about marginal gains.
No, I get it. So in terms of then, like, your rate card or your cost from a, you know, how's that managed? Because again, for most businesses who haven't used a service like yours, it's a new spend.
Yes.
Right? So is it a case that you take a cut based on the savings you make? Is it a retainer thing? You know.
So we have a couple of different models. If clients are just looking to engage with us on media buying, there's no cost on that. So we will help them not just do the renewal, but we'll do an initial kind of health check to show them how it performed previously, make recommendations based on that, negotiate that contract for them, and either we can buy it directly or we'll send them to Wave, who are our trusted media partner, and they can make some savings in terms of being able to buy a better contract, but also the savings that you get through working with an ad agency. But then what we tend to see from that is, particularly off the back of the health check, is clients will be like, that report was really good. How can we have access to that? How can we have access to that? And we have a very simple concept in that. We charge per day or per half day, depending on the size of company. So a full day is £500, and clients can engage with that either on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis. For a smaller company that just needs, so one of our clients has only got CV Library, that's their major contract, but they're really looking to make improvements and know their data. That report takes us half a day, so we just charge them £300 per day, for £300 per month for that one, and they get that report on a monthly basis. But then off the back of that, we give the data report, and we also give more of a salesperson's report, like that someone like myself would really engage with, which is kind of like the highlights, what's good, what's bad, what we need to look at, and then we'll have either a sit-down meeting or a Teams meeting with them to run through kind of how things are going, where we see things, and then follow-up actions every month. And what we're looking for is, we're always going to get peaks and troughs in ROI, but what we're looking for are positive patterns. So we're looking for it to be being used better. We're looking to see that ROI on the job boards going up. We're looking to see those things that we identified earlier. So we've just done one with one of our clients who they're not making anywhere near enough placements for how good a quality CRM system they've got. So one of the things we're looking to do at the moment is how can we improve that? So we're doing recommend a friend campaigns. We're introducing mailers as part of their KPIs for their consultants. And what we're looking to do over this next 3 to 6 months is see an upward pattern of a percentage of placements coming from their CRM source. And it goes back to that thing what I was saying. It's about, hopefully at the end of 12 months they will have spent less. They will have spent less because they're buying via an agency, but they're buying better as well. But they'll be making more from it because they're using it in a better way as well. And that's the idea behind it, really.
That's understood. Right. Okay. I think the right place to close then is we're in January. I'm not sure when this will go out. Probably mid-Feb.
Yeah.
What's your prediction for this year then? What's the trends? What's it looking like? What do you think is going to happen?
So I think the trends will be for it to remain relatively the same as it was over the last 12 months, if I'm being honest. Particularly in the first 6 months, I can't see any reason for any drastic change. Both.
But it's January, new year, new me. Like, surely
Yeah,
that should make a
new
difference.
year, new me. But I can't see any. The data for us doesn't give any indication of any huge changes around the corner. I think one of the things that I'm particularly proud of within recruitment is, despite the fact for the last year everyone's being told that there aren't any candidates and there's not going to be any jobs.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at, I've got a lot of friends in the IT sector, and in the first 3 months of the year they were like, oh, it's crashed in America, it'll crash in Great Britain next. Those guys have done really well over the last 6 months. They haven't had the year they had in 2022, but they've still had a good
You've
year.
almost got to write that off though, haven't you? Because it was a
an anomaly.
recovery year.
Yeah.
You know, that was a complete anomaly.
It was one of those years where I think nearly every business did well across any sector, if that makes sense. And it was one of those ones that I think if you just happened to stumble into a recruitment job in January 2022, you probably thought it was like shelling eggs. It really was. Like, you find a candidate, place a candidate, move on. And I think moving forward, moving into 2024, I think we will kind of see one of those things. I think the really good recruiters will continue to stand out.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I would say is, I can normally, within about 5 minutes of having a bit of research on a client, you can see the guys who are switched on and who are being proactive, who know their market, who are invested in their social media profiles, who've got good relationships with their clients. I think that's the thing that will continue. I think if you are a good recruiter, that will continue to help you stand out. I can't see any major changes in, I think where you had candidate shortages, you will continue to have those, particularly that I can't see any reason why they change.
There's no magic wand to change that.
There's
right now.
nothing. There's
no-
nothing
in
coming around the
place
corner that I will see. I think it's going to be one of those ones where we're going to have to work hard again these next 12 months. But I think that's one of the things recruiters are particularly good at doing. They are really good at. They are good at working hard. And I think it'll be the people who, I'm going to put my own little slant on this. It'll be the people who understand and know their data really well that are able to make those gains.
No,
But
I think that's absolutely correct. Yeah. There's more and more RecTech products that are coming out now, which off the top of my head, I'm thinking of Alex Odwell's Radar, designed to be a AI plugin that goes into your CRM and helps do exactly that, right? Sort of get the data and enrich the search facility, because the candidates that you want to place are likely already in your database. There's a lot more. There's a lot more ways to make placements outside of just slap an advert out and wait for them to come back in.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think there's partnering up with people like yourself will help businesses kind of maximise the spend that they're already spending.
Yeah.
But let's try and get that to kind of
Yeah,
give
and
you a
I
better
think
return.
knowing your data is going to be really important, but also knowing your marketplace and things like RecTools, where you're able to see what's new out there. How can that help my business? I've had one of our retained clients who have had probably 6 to 8 new tech companies in over the last 6 months. Now, they haven't engaged or purchased any of them right there on the spot. They haven't been right for them there, but they are really aware of what's out there and when and where it can fit into their business model.
That's key.
For me, they're the companies that are going to stand out, because they know what's out there, they know what's going to benefit them, and it's just a matter of it slotting in at the right time to help them when they need it.
That's it. Which is data-driven decision making, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
That's it. Well, there you go. Look, mate, I really appreciate
Yeah,
you
it was great to
taking
see
the
you
time
again.
to come on. And for those who want to reach out to you and connect with you, what's the best way to do that?
Probably either on LinkedIn, or you can drop me an email at simon@trsource.co.uk.
Wow, brilliant, man. Appreciate you coming on.
Love to see you, mate.
Thank you, mate. Make sure this is all through properly.
Was that okay?
That was perfect. Yeah, that was good.